Welcome to Super Talk, the podcast that scratches your superhero itch. Just two suburban dads nerding out over superhero stuff on the small screen and the big. Buckle up, people. Enjoy the ride. Professor, like a gentleman, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Let's roll it. Let me see here. In 3.
Welcome to Super Talk, the weekly podcast dedicated to news and reviews of comic book media on the big and small screen. This is episode 106. I'm your host, Brian Professor Pettis, and with me, as always, my illustrious co-host, Titanium Tony Estrella. Back from being sick, Estrella, Titanium, you're back.
Yeah, down but not counted out. So, yeah.
Yeah, we weren't even sure if we were going to be able to get together this week. You know,
yeah.
We come back this weekend, Titanium's like, yeah, man, I'm not really feeling well. Yeah. I sound like
crap. Caught a little cold. I
yeah.
sounded like shit.
Yeah.
And I couldn't breathe through my nose, so it was all like heavy breathing. Yeah, it was awful. That was awful. 4 days. It lasted 4 days. Just a little head cold. I got it from my youngest daughter, Gabby. You know, that high school thing that's going around the high school. And then I came home. You know, she came home. I got it. Gave it to my wife. She's got it now. So it's going through the house. It's running rampant. We're all right.
Yeah. Well, we're back since we did our review of Quantumania. We're back. And look, I know it was a little harsh in the movie, but, man, ever since the movie's come out and I've seen some of the reviews out there, I was right, by the way. It's getting. I think the more people are watching this, and I frankly, I think the more people are seeing it multiple times, the more they're seeing some of the flaws this movie had, and I think it's tailed off a lot at the box office, even though there's really been nothing out. I guess Creed came out last weekend or something, but.
Yeah, Creed came out. I don't think that's knocking anything the socks off of people either.
Right.
Creed, from what I'm hearing, isn't doing as well as they thought it was going to do. So, you know, Quantumania, it took $200 million to make the movie. It's made over $350 million worldwide.
Oh, it's profitable. Yeah,
it's very profitable. You know, in the notes in your news, you put some news down there that they did some major reshoots at the end of that movie, and I happen to I've heard that too. I agree with that, but still, I tell you, it's not. I didn't find it as bad as you did. I still thought it was a very good movie. I thought that casting was awful. Really did nothing to move the story forward. There were a lot of plot holes that I agree with you. You know, the shrinking and growing in the quantum realm, all of those aspects of it. Why didn't Kang just steal the shrinking power?
Why did he steal the Pym particles and
just do it himself?
Right.
So a lot of theories out there about plot holes and everything. I still thought it was very entertaining. I love Ant-Man as a character. I thought it was a good movie. Honestly, is it in my top 10? No.
Honestly, I think the only thing that really saved it for both of us is that we love Paul Rudd so much, and we think that he's a great Ant-Man. And I think, look,
and Jonathan Majors did very. I don't think people are like doting over him, and they're giving him so much props. He is so great. He was good, but I thought Kang should have been more vicious. You know, I think Kang should have killed more people.
He's going to be, and we'll talk about it a little bit tonight, but he's going to be given every opportunity to show how great he is, to show how much of a spectrum he has across the acting spectrum, because he's going to be portraying this character multiple times across multiple different projects.
Variants of this character.
Oh, yeah, so he's going to have a chance to show everybody how good he is at this role and how bad Kang is as a villain. But anyway, we'll kind of talk a little bit about some of the changes they made in the movie here in a few minutes. But before we get started, we want to thank the listeners that bring the show to you. Those are our patrons. Patreon.com/supertalk is how you join the patronship. Patreon.com/supertalk. It's $1 every time we come out with any silly episodes. And if we make your day a little bit better, go ahead and join the patronship, and you can kind of give right back to the show. So we appreciate the listeners who are doing that today very much. All right, let's jump into the news. A ton of stuff that's happened since our last show. Big. I mean, this is about as big of an announcement, and we've speculated on this in the past, Titanium. We know the kind of the nightmare scenario that Marvel's dealing with in the separation of their properties across different studios.
The distribution rights.
Who owns the rights across these characters.
Yeah.
And Marvel and Disney have been doing as much as they can over the last several years to consolidate those. As we know, they acquired 20th Century Fox Studios, which own the rights to X-Men. The entire X-Men properties, right. Including Deadpool and Wolverine and everything else. So that's now underneath their house. Still, other than Deadpool 3, still have no idea what the plans are for those characters, and hopefully we'll hear something here before too long. But that's one big consolidation. They've signed a sharing agreement with Sony, so they have the use of the Spider-Man character, even though a lot of the other Spider-Man characters that Sony still owns and controls are still under their purview, as we've seen with Morbius and Venom, and you know, we know there's Silk and Madam Web and all kinds of other stuff they're doing with these properties on the Sony side, but at least Spider-Man can be part of the MCU, which is great. But the one outlier has been Universal. Universal Studios own the distribution rights to the Hulk character, as well as some other characters, including Namor,
right?
Including She-Hulk.
Yeah.
So there was never going to be a standalone project, standalone movie done by Marvel that included that character. So that's why those characters were always supporting characters inside of other movies and other TV shows. I think the TV rights were a little bit different, which is why they could do a She-Hulk TV show. But
or they might have brokered a deal.
It's possible. But we know the original Incredible Hulk movie that they did as part of the MCU with Edward Norton was distributed by Universal.
Yeah.
And that's how they kind of got around it.
Universal Studios, if you ever gone there, they had a lot of Marvel rights there. Yeah, we've talked about that. We did a whole episode on that.
Yeah, that's another story there. But as far as the movie rights are concerned for that character. So, however, the Hulk's been able to be in the Avengers and Thor Ragnarok and other projects. Namor obviously was in Black Panther Wakanda Forever. But they want to be able to do these standalone movies. And Marco Ruffalo's talked about his desire to do a standalone Hulk movie again. And unfortunately, they couldn't.
World War Hulk, I believe, is what everybody's hoping.
There's rumors out there that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
And so the rumor now is that Disney is negotiating with Comcast, who owns Universal, Comcast Universal, NBC, Comcast Universal. That's the whole company. They're negotiating with them and trying to broker a deal for the rights to Hulk and Namor and She-Hulk, specifically offering Hulu. They're going to give them Hulu, the streaming service Hulu, in exchange for the exclusive rights to these characters.
Well, I don't know. Give them. Hulu would be
they're trading
a couple of $1 billion for that. I think they own 67. Disney owns 67% of it.
Of Hulu?
Of Hulu. And Universal and Comcast owns the rest of it.
Oh, they do?
And then the deal
so
that they
brokered... it would be giving back the other 67%
they would allow them to purchase it at a much discounted rate as part of the deal and roll in those character distribution rights into that deal, because Comcast definitely wants a premium streaming service. I think they have Peacock and they have some other ones that don't do very well and don't have the type of footprint that this streaming service does. So that would be part of the deal.
Well, they could do something very similar to what Disney did when they rolled National Geographic and Hulu and everything else into kind of the Disney Plus family.
Right.
They're kind of all part of the same family.
Which would be smart.
Look, this, as far as you and I are concerned, in this show, having the rights for those characters to go back to Marvel would be fantastic. And then the gloves are off, right? So, hey, this is great rumor, and if it does become true, I know they'll be celebrating it, and Marco Ruffalo will be very excited because, again, they've been talking about ideas around the solo Hulk project. They just haven't been able to do it. And we've seen teasers in the She-Hulk series. We saw him bring his son Scar home from Sakaar, and so there's all kinds of other things that they're alluding to in regards to a potential Hulk movie. So we'll see.
big upside to it to get those distribution rights and the rights to
Absolutely. So that'd be exciting.
Yeah, exciting.
Another thing that we heard over the last couple of weeks, Hugh Jackman, as we know, is going to be playing Wolverine in Deadpool 3, coming back to reprise his role for that project, and we understand it's going to be a time travel story, kind of like a buddy cop thing, like 48 Hours. We've heard all the stories. But he mentioned to a magazine in London, in doing an interview, that he's playing a dual role. So Hugh Jackman, the actor, and when actors refer to themselves playing dual roles, it means that they're playing more than one character in the same movie. And we've seen this several times. We've seen the same actor portray multiple characters in the same movie. And so he referred to his role in Deadpool 3 as a dual role. And we're like, whoa, wait a minute, what's that mean, dual role? So it's possible. And I think that this is what people are kind of referring to, that he may be playing multiple versions of Wolverine or multiple iterations of Wolverine.
Variants of Wolverine?
Or multiple variants of Wolverine in this movie. Similar to the way he did in Logan. We know that there were two versions of Wolverine. There was a clone of him in that movie as well. But that would be... it just opens the door. And again, we've heard a million rumors about this movie, that every one of the Fox characters is coming back in this movie. All the original X-Men characters, all the Days of Future Past characters, all the First Class characters are all coming back.
Didn't he come out and state that it's going to be a much more aggressive, meaner Wolverine? That could have been one of the variants that he was referring to,
right? Who knows? Yeah. But it's just exciting. I mean, you and I are busted up about this.
Yeah.
And as far as we know, they're still finalizing the script for that movie. Again, that was delayed. It was supposed to come out next October 2024. Has been pushed into early 2025 now because of Blade kind of taking over the spot that Deadpool 3 was in.
September or something.
Yeah, again, no official announcements, but we know that I think it was November or whatever. But Blade has moved into that spot when it got delayed a year. So Deadpool is effectively moved out to early 2025. But look, we're excited for this. This is probably going to be it's just going to be a home run.
It's going to be a home run
across the board.
No question.
Another big casting announcement from Marvel. Stephen Yeun from Walking Dead fame. Glenn from Walking Dead. One of the most brutal and horrific and just saddening and shocking death scenes in The Walking Dead.
Fan favorite for sure.
When Negan clubbed him in the head with a bat. But Glenn, Stephen Yeun, who played Glenn in The Walking Dead, has joined.
Also voices the main character in Invincible.
Yeah. So
it's awesome.
He plays Invincible in that, or voices the character in that show. Anyway, he's coming back, coming into the MCU officially as part of the Thunderbolts movie. And then the first announcement was the cast of the Thunderbolts has added a new actor, Stephen Yeun. He's been cast to the movie. It's like, who's he going to be playing?
Right.
That was a big rumor. Who's he going to be playing? Who's he going to be playing? And the original thoughts were, well, maybe he's playing Amadeus Cho, which is
the Asian version of the Hulk,
part of the Hulk family. An Asian Hulk who's exposed to gamma rays, all kinds of other things. But then later on, we found out that he had been cast in the role of Sentry, and we know that Sentry was. It
hasn't been confirmed, but this is where everybody's leading.
Right. So Sentry, we know, is going to be part of that movie. We believe. Again, this is just rumors that have been out there, or kind of theory crafting from the fan base, that Val and the government has been working on their own super soldiers, right? And they've created their own superhero who happens to be Sentry. Sentry ends up escaping or being released and has
mental issues,
has some serious mental problems, and the Thunderbolts are likely going to have to.
He's part of the team, but then turns on the team.
Yeah. So interesting. I mean, Stephen Yeun's got to start hitting the weight room.
That's okay. Let's bring that up.
Right.
Once again, I'm okay with these C level definitely, and these B level characters being either gender swapped or race swapped or both. It's fine. I'm okay with it. But the A level characters, please just leave them alone. And I think Sentry is somewhat of a C-level character.
Oh, for sure.
Right? He's not that popular. But he's a long blonde hair. It kind of looked like Chris Hemsworth in the first Thor movie.
Chris Hemsworth, basically.
It is, right? He's got long blonde hair, like blue-eyed, big muscular guy. I don't see him playing that. But hopefully, he's a great actor. Maybe he'll make it work. I mean, he's obviously going to have to play somebody that has some mental issues, that's part of the team.
Well, theoretically, he's got the power of 1,000 suns in his body, right? And so, who knows?
He can fly. He's basically a bad super. He's Homelander.
Yes.
That's what he is. He's Homelander with long hair.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
No ray visions, though. He has no eye ray vision.
He can kind of... there's ways that he can exude energy, so there are ways he can do that. But anyway, we'll see.
Interesting casting, if true.
We'll see. Again, we'll kind of talk about this as we move along, but we know there are going to be some major delays to some of the Marvel scheduled projects, and Thunderbolts hopefully may or may not be part of that. Again, I wish Marvel would come out and deal with this. It sounds like to me, since no official announcements have come out, they've been very reluctant to even tell us that. We know they officially announced that the Marvels is being delayed until October of this year, which we got earlier a couple weeks ago. But again, they talked about how some of the Disney Plus shows are going to be released on a different schedule.
Marvel's pushed to November 10th.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we know that's been delayed already. But it sounds like to me they're waiting to make another big announcement. Until
Kevin Feige came out and said that we're being very thoughtful in our decisions, especially with the Fantastic Four and the casting of that. And they're slowing everything and pushing everything back. And I think Iger is the big leading force of that.
But we're not going to get an official announcement about how the schedule has changed until probably Comic-Con.
Yeah.
In July.
Well, I sent you some stuff today.
Yeah, we'll talk through that. But as far as I'm concerned, until I hear from Marvel, it means... And this seems like poppycock to me anyway, but we'll talk about it. Here's another... And I love... By the way, I love it. I think this is fantastic. So we know that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, the sequel to Into the Spider-Verse, is
June 2nd.
Coming out this summer. And highly anticipated. The first movie did fantastic. Probably my second favorite Spider-Man movie of all time. I mean, it was that well done. The first movie was. So the sequel is highly anticipated. And we understand now that it's highly likely that they're going to be referring to the events of Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange and how what they did in that movie messed up the multiverse in this film, which then, even to a greater extent, further entwines the Spider-Verse with the MCU. Because I would understand if they're referring to Tom Holland's version of Peter Parker in that movie, because he's just maybe another version of Peter Parker that lives in another world. But then for them to refer to Doctor Strange, who is an MCU character, would be a huge, wow, we can do this. And that, look...
Cross-pollinating those two would be
the
huge.
Excitement that this brings to those of us who are big fans of potentially further crossover between the Spider-Verse and the MCU is even better. I mean, look, we've talked about this. We'd love to see Venom in the MCU someday.
Yeah.
We'd love to see Tom Holland's Spider-Man cross over into the Venomverse, or we'd love to see Morbius part of it. Not the post-credit scene with Vulture and all that other stuff. But look, this would be great. And I mean, if this is true, and I believe it is, I just think that maybe this agreement between Sony and Marvel is a little bit more extensive than we believe.
Yeah.
And it only benefits both companies. I mean, we've seen... I mean, Spider-Man No Way Home is one of the highest grossing movies of all time.
Yeah.
All time!
And we reported last podcast that we did, we reported that Tom Holland signed a huge deal, another 3-movie deal, standalone Spider-Man, plus several other movies that are involved, which we think he'll be in, Kang Dynasty, Secret Wars, and probably a few other in-between movies. But he signed a huge deal, which is great, because I'd love to see him play Spider-Man. Hey, Professor, let me ask you this. Do you think Into the Spider-Verse will
Across the Spider-Verse?
Do you think it'll have any connection to Madam Web, maybe?
The one thing we know about that movie is it's a 2-part film, right? We know that Part 1, Across the Spider-Verse Part 1, comes out this summer, and the second part comes out, I don't know if it's next year or the year after, but it's a 2-parter. So we know that this is a 2-part film, which when there's a two-part film and you know it's a two-part film, it kind of like almost sets your expectations up for like a massive cliffhanger at the end of the first movie.
That's
right?
what they're for,
right? Yeah. And as long as they don't extend like the time between the two movies, I'm like when they did it with Infinity War and Endgame, we had a year, and it was like, oh well, we kind of know what we're waiting for. We kind of and we knew this when this happened. We know Black Panther and Spider-Man both got dusted, and then we knew that Spider-Man Far From Home was coming out after Endgame, and they started the promotion for that movie before Endgame came out, and people were asking Tom Holland, wait a minute, weren't you dusted in Infinity War? How are you well, we never know what happens in the MCU, right? So
the movie is based on before I get dusted.
Right. But anyway, to answer your question, is it possible that what happens in Across the Spider-Verse leads into the Madam Web movie? It's possible. Yeah. I think more likely than not, Kraven the Hunter will definitely fit into what's going on with Madam Web.
And I was just looking at my schedule here. Have you heard anything about that movie? It comes out in October.
Right, nothing.
It comes out this year in October.
Well, we haven't heard anything about the Marvels either. And that comes out in November.
Well, we heard a few things about the Marvels that we can get into. Major reshoots.
Yeah.
The third act, they're completely
which is why they pushed it.
Yeah, which is exactly why they pushed it.
Why they pushed
Major reshoots. They're getting rid of a lot of the goofiness I hear in the movie. It's being a little bit more serious, a serious tone. I don't know. I'm weary of that movie, to be honest with you. I'm so weary of that movie. That is one Marvel movie, and I'll have to admit it. It is one Marvel movie I am not looking forward to seeing. And that's horrible to say, but
look,
I mean, I'm going to go see it, obviously, and I hope it exceeds my expectations. But they're so low. How can it?
Marvel's come out with a bunch of stinkers in a row. Not stinkers, just lackluster movies. And you and I think we know Guardians is going to be good.
Oh yeah,
we know that movie's going to be good for lots of different reasons.
How does that? Do you think that benefits? This is a good question. Do you think that benefits Marvel or DC now that James Gunn is flipped and running DC?
Both.
Does it both?
Totally both.
Yeah,
I think Marvel. I think
right.
Guardians has to be good because if you think about it, if Guardians isn't good, and there's no reason why I would think it wouldn't be. The first two were very good. These characters are beloved. James Gunn knows what he's doing. But that would be. I mean, they've had 4 out of the last 6 movies have been okay. I mean, the only one I would say, Spider-Man, obviously, No Way Home, which blockbuster of all time. That was fantastic. And Shang-Chi, I thought was good. Was better than good. I thought that was a very good movie.
Too much CG.
At the ending was weird.
Too much
but
CG.
Most of that movie was very good.
Very good. Yeah.
Right. But the rest of the movies, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, Thor: Love and Thunder, again, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, I thought was okay. It wasn't fantastic. It was okay. But again, Ant-Man and Quantumania, I just thought was And they need a good movie, and I think Guardians will be good. So I think we'll be okay there. But I think is there what's going on with Kraven? I don't know.
Haven't heard anything.
Well, if you remember, that movie was supposed to come out in March.
Yeah,
and then they pushed it to October. And I don't know if that was because of reshoots or anything like that either. But Sony's in the middle of building their Spider-Verse, and this is the first movie. Well, I guess you could classify Morbius as their first movie of the new Spider-Verse, but and the Venom movies you could kind of classify as well. But I think they need to have, and from what we've seen, there have been some behind-the-scenes footage of Anthony Taylor Johnson, in the costume and doing some stunts and things like that. And so we know this movie has been filmed and it's kind of but we haven't seen a trailer or anything.
Nothing.
They got to start promoting.
Not even a teaser. They got to start the marketing machine on this.
Well, if you remember, Sony was supposed to be at the Brazilian Comic-Con back in the fall.
It dropped. Yeah.
And they left.
Yeah.
And this was right before they announced that Kraven was being pushed, and right before they announced Madam Web was being pushed.
But can they save it for Comic-Con in July?
That's what I think they're doing.
Really?
I think Sony's going to have a huge presence at Comic-Con in July. I think they're going to have like a whole Hall H
a
for
Madam
Sony.
Web, a Kraven. maybe announce some Spider stuff in the
Yep, we're going to have
Spider-Man
the
4.
Spider-Man 4 announcement. We'll have, I think they're going to have a major presence at Comic-Con. I think that's what they're going to do. And again, that'll be a month after Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 comes out. They'll be able to tease Part 2. They'll talk about what they're doing with the Spider-Verse. So probably, that's, if you're going to, look, the rumors are high potential. Spider-Man 4 is a Spider-Man Venom crossover movie. Yeah. That's the huge rumor out there. That he gets a black costume at some point in time, either in that movie or Kang Dynasty potentially, that he gets the black costume and then we have a Venom crossover. So that's the time you announce it, is in Comic-Con, if you're going to do stuff like that, right?
Wow.
So we'll see.
That'd be interesting.
Avengers Kang Dynasty. There are some now plot rumors coming out about that movie. And they're going to be centering the movie on the Kang character, very similar to what they did with Infinity War, and kind of making the movie of Infinity War about Thanos.
Yeah.
Establishing Thanos as a villain and showing Thanos going across the galaxy, finding the Infinity Stones and what his mission is and why he's doing it and all the things. So that's what Kang Dynasty is going to be about. It's going to be about either a single version of Kang thinking that he's doing the right thing. From his
point of view.
Saving the multiverse. So if you remember, at the end of Loki season 1, when we got the He Who Remains version of Kang, that there was this multiverse war.
Yeah.
And it was all the Kangs fighting against each other, trying to take control of the multiverse. And so we might be focusing on a singular version of Kang in Kang Dynasty, trying to take control of the other kind of variants of Kang and kind of humanize him from a villainous perspective, right? We got to stop this guy, but he thinks he's doing the right thing, right?
They need to build his character like they did Thanos.
Right.
I mean, to be honest with you, the whole Thanos was right movement started after Infinity War, when you got to know that character and his reasoning behind how he wanted to cut the universe in half and delete half the population of the universe for the better of it, for its growth, for its natural resources. I mean, if they can do that in Kang Dynasty to Kang, I think they have something.
And honestly, the reason why Infinity War and Endgame were such great movies was because that was such a great villain.
Sure.
Such a great villain. I mean, it was perfect. And, you had to have...
Earlier movies with Loki.
Right. Such a great villain.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So anyway, again, not much more detail about that. We'll get into that a little bit later. Let's get into the whole Quantumania thing. So there were stories that have come out after the movie's been released. We've had interviews with Peyton Reed, and we've had interviews with the writers, and they've talked about how the ending of the movie changed substantially in the latter months of their production schedule. So they reshot the ending a couple of times. We hear that the original ending either had Scott Lang dying, or, at a minimum, him and Hope being trapped in the multiverse. Or, at minimum, him being trapped in the quantum realm. At the end of the movie, he was trapped.
Yeah.
And Kang escaped. And they reshot the endings. And that was, again, when we reviewed the movie, that was one of the things that was just so wacky to me. That all of a sudden, Scott and Kang are fighting, and then Cassie, this little machine that she built in the garage, all of a sudden can send people back and forth from this little part of the quantum realm. And Hope comes back to save him. And then it's like, oh, here's a portal. Come back. Come home. I mean, it was just weird.
Yeah, the way they made a portal so quickly after escaping from the quantum realm that got him out of there.
Yeah, within minutes. Yeah. And, and again, big rumors about how the version of Kang, the Conqueror who was in Quantumania, got sucked into his time device, and is he really dead or is he alive? We never saw a body, and so there's lots of rumors about that. But also, we reported on this several months ago, rumors about post-credit scenes, and one of the rumors about a post-credit scene of if Scott were trapped in the quantum realm, that Cassie was going to be back at Hank's laboratory and going on a computer and finding some plans for the next Avengers or the Young Avengers or whatever. In case of emergency, press this button, and and it would show a lot of the younger members who have been kind of recruited and talking about a Young Avengers kind of promotion, and that was cut. So again, what they ended up doing, Oh, and the other thing, and there was huge, lots of guys out there talking about this, and I kind of picked up on this a little bit too. It seemed all too convenient when he got back at how easy things were. And again, there's now rumors that when he escaped the quantum realm, he really didn't escape. That he kind of escaped into another kind of quasi like mind bend timeline. Because remember, the cake was purple and green, and there were people walking around in green dresses and purple dresses, and there were purple and green balloons at Cassie's birthday party, and it's like, is this all being manipulated by Kang? Maybe
another Kang
wanted him to think that he escaped, but he really didn't.
Right.
And I get all that, and that would make a ton of sense. But why hide that from us as the audience if that's exactly what you did? Why are they making it hidden, and why not reveal that at the end of the movie? And then, if that's the way the movie ends, hey, he's walking down the street, everything's cool, go to Cassie's birthday party, but things don't seem quite right.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden, the veil gets lifted, and we find out he's trapped in something.
Yeah.
That would have made a lot of sense.
Some other dimension.
But why didn't they do that?
Interesting, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
And who's the mastermind behind that?
Exactly. Yeah. Explain it. Yeah. And if that ends up being the truth, why didn't you reveal that at the end of the movie? It just
could they
strange.
open up Kang Dynasty with that? So
who knows? Yeah, who knows? Who knows? And again, one thing I know you sent me earlier today, that there's some rumor out there now that Secret Wars may be delayed until 2028. And the theory crafting behind this is that, it will be released on the 20-year anniversary of the first MCU movie, which came out in 2008, Iron Man 1. When I saw this, I was like, okay. Right now, as it stands, we know this is wrong. As it stands, it's on the schedule for November of 2025.
November 2025, yeah.
Right now, because Kang Dynasty is supposed to come out in May of 2025, and then Secret Wars was coming out in November 2025.
Yeah.
We've talked about this. There's been tons of people talking about this. There's no way. I think it was ambitious of them to come out with 2 Avengers movies in the same calendar year.
Yeah.
Very ambitious. Right. And we know the subsequent schedule changes that have occurred since that schedule is announced means that everything's being pushed. So likely Kang Dynasty will be pushed at a minimum to late 2025, and then the earliest we would be getting Secret Wars would be early 2026 or mid 2020, probably like June or July 2026, right? So, or May, whatever, 2026. But to push it another 2 years,
that's 5 years.
I'm probably not going to make it.
No.
So,
and neither would the actors. Think about some of these
how old these actors
are.
Right, and the other thing to think about too is for the fact that it's the sake of doing it for the 20th anniversary, that makes zero sense to me. That's just poppycock as far as I'm concerned. But
didn't you say that Secret Wars was a 2-parter?
What do you mean a 2-parter?
Like Secret Wars
Part 1 and Part 2? Like they did with Infinity War and Endgame?
Yeah.
I don't think that they planned on it being a 2-parter, but look, Secret Wars can be as big as they want it to be.
Of course.
I mean, it's a huge...
It could be an end game type of...
Both iterations of Secret Wars in the comic books were extensive. You had, an 8 or 12 issue comic book run about the Secret War itself. And then you had these crossovers with the different individual titles that were part of Secret Wars as well. So it was a massive crossover event. So they can make this movie as big or as contained as they want to. Could they do it all in a 2.5 to 3 hour movie? Of course they could. Could they spread it out over 2.5 hour movies? Of course they could. How many of these, multiverse alternate versions of characters do you want to bring together into the same movie? Well, the more you bring in, the more screen time you're going to need to have all those characters and all those.
Develop those. You got to get FaceTime and.
I do know, and again, just this ambiguity about what's going on. I mean, look, when Comic-Con happened and then when D23 happened, we were super excited. Yeah. Hey, there's a great announcement.
Think about how much has changed since those announcements.
And that's why you look at those schedules now and you're like, okay, well, no, that's been pushed. Well, that's been pushed. That's been pushed. That's been pushed.
The whole thing has been blown up.
Look, and again, we theoretically are going to be getting Secret Invasion. We've already gotten a trailer. We know that thing's in the can. We're supposed to be getting that this spring. No announcement about when it's coming out. None. And so now the theory, talk is now May either just prior to or just after Guardians of the Galaxy on Disney Plus. Okay. And then we know Loki season 2 is coming out. You just did a massive post-credit scene teaser for Loki season 2 at the end of Quantumania.
Yeah.
Are you going to let that sit in a can for a year?
You can't.
No, that'll come out this year.
Come out this year.
Probably August, September timeframe would be something. You got to fill the gap. Something between
arguably one of the biggest anticipated Disney Plus shows
for sure.
Sure,
and it'll be a home run. No question, it'll be a home run. So look, again, Tony, I don't think maybe when they're starting to do promotion for Guardians of the Galaxy, look. Could we possibly get our first teaser trailer for Loki season 2? I mean, we've got a snippet some scenes in the Disney Plus promos they've done, but I've never got an official trailer yet. No. Nothing. Could we get one?
Huge end credit scene.
Right. Could we get one just before Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3? Yes. Could we get a teaser trailer at least for the Marvels? I hope so.
Yeah.
But I don't anticipate any major announcements about schedule or rescheduling or revamping of the schedule until Comic-Con.
Right.
I just don't. Great. When are they going to do it?
Yeah, they're not.
Unless he holds a press conference for some reason,
No, they're not.
They've had investor
days. Why would you kill Comic-Con in the anticipation? But everybody's got a lot of questions, and what a great venue to answer those questions. I agree with you. Comic-Con's it.
Well, and again, after Guardians Volume 3... there's nothing on the schedule officially right now until November. So you got to do something to kind of keep the momentum. So, we'll see. Yeah. Again, we'll continue to talk about Fantastic Four casting rumors for the next 6 months until they actually do something. So we'll talk through that.
Well, we got Shazam next week, so our next episode will be about Shazam.
Yeah.
Yay.
Look, I'm sure it'll be entertaining.
Yep.
That's the way and again, my expectations could not be less for this movie. I mean, I'm just hoping I go in there and I'm entertained.
Yeah.
And I know I will be. I mean, I like Zachary Levi. I mean, I like the Shazam character. The Shazam family's fun. I mean, but will it kind of blow me away? Probably not. And if it ends up doing that, I will be pleasantly surprised. Yeah. Right? Okay. Let's get into our topic of the week this week. And it's brought to us by our friends over at Studio GG Studios, home of the main band, Corn on the Cob. Studio G.
Corn on the Cob.
You guys rock.
Check them out.
Yeah, check out their page in our show notes every week. Thank you. Big announcement, officially confirmed today, that Jon Bernthal is returning as our good friend, the Punisher, Frank Castle, in Daredevil Born Again.
Yeah.
Look, this is highly rumored. You and I have talked about this several times over the last several months. There were massive rumors about Jon Bernthal returning, massive rumors about him coming back, interviews with him asking him the question directly, him denying it but saying that he would be open to it if it happened in the future and all this other stuff. Well, now the Hollywood Reporter came out today and officially announced that Jon Bernthal is returning as Frank Castle, the Punisher, in Daredevil Born Again.
Yeah.
This is, again, as much of it's not a surprise to us, I'm so happy for this because, again, love the character, love Jon Bernthal's portrayal of the character, and if you have not seen... so The Punisher first was shown in the Netflix Season 2 of Daredevil, which is on Disney+. And that was a great season of Daredevil. And then he had 2 seasons of his own show on on Netflix, which are now on Disney+. Probably, don't let your young children watch them. I'll just tell you, the most brutal and violent television I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, it was brutal and violent and bloody and gory and just it's crazy.
Well, he said I will not come back if they soften the character.
If they water down Frank Castle, I will not be returning.
That's what he said.
Right.
So he's returning. We can expect that type of tone in this movie, in this show.
Right. So that tells us...
How great is that?
That tells us that the brutal, hardcore version of Frank Castle that Jon Bernthal played is returning to Daredevil Born Again.
there's only a handful, and there's probably more than a handful. I'm exaggerating, but there's a cup, maybe two fistfuls of characters, comic book characters, where the casting has nailed it better than you could ever anticipate. And he is one of them.
Oh, without question.
Absolutely.
Charlie Cox was a home run for Daredevil.
Daredevil.
Yeah. But again,
for the Punisher,
Frank.
Jon
Bernthal
nailed it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And again, when I first heard the Punisher was coming to Daredevil season 2, I was super excited because huge fan of Punisher in the comic books. Was a huge comic book reader of the Punisher comics, and just loved the backstory of him. Why he is who he is and the way he does. And, he's just a vigilante and he uses whatever means necessary to go after bad guys. He doesn't care who gets in the way. And look, Jon Bernthal just nailed it. It was so good.
Yeah.
So I'm excited he's coming back. A few other rumors about, or we'll say reports and stories about this series. Kristen Ritter is also going to be returning as Jessica Jones. We saw posting of her several weeks ago that she was preparing for her return into the role. She was working out at the gym wearing a Daredevil Born Again t-shirt, and she posted it to social media, which kind of spoiled the fact that she was coming back. That's great. We also do at least anticipate that potentially other characters from the Netflix series will be returning as well. No confirmation or rumors, or at least anything specifically confirming Mike Coulter returning as Luke Cage, but you and I'd be completely open for that. I think he played a great Luke Cage in the Netflix series. We do believe that Foggy Nelson and what's his secretary's name or paralegal? Karen Page.
Uh-huh.
We do believe both of them will be returning, and hopefully the same actors.
Yeah, I don't think those two will return. That's
really
just my feeling. Yeah, I don't think they're going to return.
But
and
it's
I
possible.
Think Kristen Ritter might have a. I mean, when you got those two together, man, that's powerful.
Well, the other thing we've heard. So what they told us at Comic-Con last year was that Daredevil Born Again was coming to Disney Plus, and it was an 18 episode series. And when you hear 18 episodes, you're like, "Holy Moses!"
Right?
That's a lot of episodes because most of the Disney Plus shows have been anywhere between 6 and 10 to 10 episodes. I think WandaVision was 10 or something, 8 to 10. A couple short ones to begin with.
You heard how they're shooting it, though, right?
Well, and again, that's what I was getting into. What they said is they're going to be doing
Act 1, Act 2, Act 3.
3 acts of 6 episodes each.
Yeah.
Right? And so there'll be part 1 will be, Daredevil Born Again part 1 will be 6 episodes. They'll take a little break. They'll come back with part 2. They'll take a little break. They'll come back with part 3. They're all shooting them together. And by the way, they just started filming this week.
In New York.
Yep, in New York City. Charlie Cox was spotted in New York City on set. And one of the reasons we got the news about Jon Bernthal is that he is also headed to New York as well for filming. So, look, I just hope they don't do it over 3 different years. I mean, that would just be 6 episodes and then wait a year. I mean, 6 episodes take a couple months of a break and then 6 more, you know? And it's possible maybe some of these other series on Disney Plus that they've rumored, that we've heard. I mean, look, we've heard about Agatha, Covenant of Chaos, or whatever they're calling it now. We've heard Ironheart. We've heard Nova series. We've heard a special presentation for Silver Surfer and Galactus. We know Echo. Well, Echo is supposed to come out before Daredevil Born Again. So Echo will come out first, and then Daredevil Born Again will follow it. I'm talking about the other ones that we know that are coming out that we don't know anything about as far as timelines. Maybe they sprinkle them in between these acts of Daredevil Born Again, right?
Yeah, I think Echo has to come out before Daredevil Born Again.
Because it establishes... we know
the
Charlie
Kingpin
Cox
comes back.
We know Charlie Cox is in Echo, and we know that the Kingpin comes back in the Echo series as well. Right. And we know the Kingpin is playing a huge role in Daredevil Born Again. So you have to have the Echo series first. So we believe, from a timeline perspective, that we'll get Echo early next year. So 2024 will be in the earlier part of the year, maybe late winter, early spring. And then Daredevil Born Again will come out in the summertime next year. So
Kid from Hell's Kitchen is back, people.
So excited.
Yeah.
Again, I can't be happier for Charlie Cox. He really just, I mean, those 3 seasons that he did on Netflix were just awesome. Again, we've talked about we've reviewed the Netflix series before. We've talked about them. The one thing they suffered from was a little bit of overextension. Each one of those series was 13 episodes, and at times the plot dragged on a little bit because they had to extend the plot over 13 different episodes. And so there were a lot of filler episodes and a lot of time getting through specific pieces of the series. But the Daredevil series and the Punisher series were both just spectacular.
Well, it was interesting how we were very hesitant. 18 episodes. Ooh, man, that's a lot. How many filler episodes are going to be in there? But then when they break it into Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and then you hear it's going to be a lot of courtroom cases. So maybe 3 separate cases that he's working on that all are intertwined. It kind of like a little multiverse or a little Infinity Stone.
I think the theory
saga all in there.
That theory plays really well in that each act is a different case, and so maybe we see him spending as much time as Daredevil, not probably half as much time as Daredevil as we used to see in the Daredevil series, and more time as Matt Murdock as the lawyer, helping out people of need who need him as his lawyer side. And the case that he's working requires Daredevil's expertise, and Act 1 maybe is a single case, and maybe Act 1 has Jessica Jones helping out with some of the private investigation side. Yeah. Maybe Act 2... the Punisher's involved because of some reason. Maybe Act 3 is more of a Kingpin-driven type of thing.
But all of the cases are tied together. That would be outstanding. All dealing with the Kingpin.
Look, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah. As a street-level hero, he's one of my favorites.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
For sure.
Both of them, actually.
Yeah. He's one of those characters. Daredevil is one of those characters. And we saw this in Spider-Man No Way Home. He's one of those characters that can hold his own in his own series, and he did this in the comics, have his own comic book with his own stories, own villains, own thing that he's doing, but he can also cross over into other people's stuff. We saw it in She-Hulk. Yeah. We saw it in No Way Home. Daredevil can play a role in other things too, and I hope they continue to use these characters in different and maybe we see them in Secret Wars. Who knows? Right? Oh, yeah. We never know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Great show, Professor. Thank you. The bell is rung. School is over.
All right, well, that's it for us this week. We'll be back next week for more Super Talk. To get in touch with us on social media, hit us up via email, supertalkpodcast@outlook.com or at supertalkpod on Twitter. Until then, stay super, everyone.
And we're out. Thank you, YouTube. Please like and subscribe.
Everyone likes this game. Haters gonna hate. And I know you can't wait.